Welcome. The last best ball happy hour before the season starts. Also, just now realized that I have my Roto Grinders green screen going behind me. We'll see if we can change that real quick. Last best ball happy hour before the season starts. It's bittersweet. It has been a grind. I'm still trying to grind out. I don't know about you guys. I'm still trying to grind out my remaining drafts, mainly on DraftKings, a little bit of drafters to polish up my portfolio. But it's been a long grind. But there's also this weird feeling, like again on DraftKings, where I almost feel like I should have done all my underdog, like at least BBMs early, and then come back and done all my DraftKings now, because I know we lost a little bit of like value on, say, like a Rondale Moore, Terrace Marshall. Like they kind of risen up a little bit to maybe 2 rounds or something like that for Rondale and Terrace on DraftKings. But overall, like that sacrifice is totally fine sacrifice, given like just how soft these rooms are right now and on the other ADP values that exist. Like I'm not sure I've ever really seen anything like it. I was texting with somebody the other day that basically asked me about my original like kind of barbell approach. Cheers, Nick. Gatorade is probably good. Gatorade is probably what I should be drinking. I'll need some tomorrow after we get through tomorrow. But somebody was asking me about, like, you know, my original like barbell approach, which I still stand by, kind of the thesis of this idea, trying to scoop as much value and build super teams early and then draft late because this competition edge is a little bit better. I kind of feel, I don't know what you guys, I kind of feel, see, I think the opposite. And I think it's, I guess what I should say is to me, it's what has become clear is it's wildly different depending on the site. I actually think like for Best Ball Mania 2 or what will be, you know, Best Ball Mania 3 next year, I want to probably be done like super early, like Chris G from like Chip Chasers. He maxed it out super early and kind of got some grief from some people. And I kind of think that was the right way to play it. The market got so efficient on underdog specifically that like when I go back and look at some of my early teams and compare to what you're drafting now, it's like, I don't, you know, I'm willing to sacrifice some dead teams from earlier in order to get these super teams, you know, that you just can't build these super crazy high upside teams right now on underdog. You can build teams that have a little bit, you know, your collective group of teams right now that you build on underdog have a slightly higher median because, you know, every player, well, I guess I would say like every player is going to make the roster and every player is healthy, but even that's not true, right? Latavius really fell back. But, you know, Latavius gets cut. Justice Hill comes in and we think maybe Justice Hill's the thing and he gets hurt. Curtis Samuel is now hurt. There's still this uncertainty happening now. So I totally agree. Dan, totally agree. Again, on underdog, the last few rounds, there used to be guys, we would talk about it all the time, like on shows or in Discord with you guys, like we would cycle. I just want to cycle through all the late round guys, right? And think about who these guys that we were talking about then. You know, the guy that pops to your mind right now because of today is like De'Ami Brown. De'Ami Brown was like an 18th round pick, 17th round pick. You know, and now he during as the market got efficient on underdog, got, you know, kind of steamed up as he should. But like we were cycling through De'Ami Brown, KJ Hamler, Nico Collins, Donovan Peoples-Jones, right? Pick late round guys. And then these running backs. Damian Williams used to go in the 18th round. Damian Williams is like a 14th round pick now. right? RIP to Darrington Evans, but Darrington Evans was an 18th round pick, and he jumped all the way up to like the 15th round. And so now, like the late round tight ends are basically gone, right? I like Tyler Kroft, but like that's it. Even Pat Freiermuth has gotten steamed up beyond those last couple of rounds. The last couple of rounds have gotten so thinned out. Not even just like from like you're getting a guy like on our roster, but the difference between De'Ami Brown, Nico Collins, KJ Hamler, and pick a guy you're taking in the 18th round now. Like the difference is night and day in terms of the upside that player has. Yeah, Chris. So Chris was done in July. And so anyway, doubling back to that, I don't know how you guys feel about that. I've had a lot of conversations over the last couple of weeks with people about kind of the timing of drafts, because I've been of the belief that this is more of how we want to go. Again, on underdog and maybe on drafters. Next year, I want to try to get out in front of that a little bit more, because I would love to build some super teams on there with the cumulative scoring. I think it's really beneficial on drafters too. But anyway, on underdog, with how efficient the market proved to become, right? The people on underdog, like all you guys and Chris, Willis, everybody that was drafting on underdog was sharp. But yet, even when it's sharp drafters drafting in May and June, there's just so much unknown. It just takes time. It just takes time for that, the ADP to flesh itself out. And so you just naturally get ADP values that it takes a little bit for everybody to kind of figure it out. Then you get the Darrell Hendersons and the Gus Edwards and the James Robinsons and the whatever. You get guys that benefit from the injuries, Marquez Callaway. And that's just a natural flow of an offseason. So on underdog next year, I'm going to be like, when are they opening BBM3? Because I'm going to start drafting and I want to be done like when Chris was done. Especially because we also now know there's the puppies. I think Adam or somebody was, but yeah, I mean, puppy 3 works for reasons like this, but puppy 1, 2, 3 also work for filling in those gaps when I want to hit most of my best ball mania entries early to capitalize on, at this super, this huge field, super top heavy payout, and what I know about how the market changes. And then I can still continue to draft on there in these puppy type contests, right? Or the big dog, if you want to fire at the big dog. So this is interesting. Like, I haven't like gone back and like marked how many okay, this is a super team and this isn't a super team. I do think it's a little tough to gauge that, right? We still don't even really know. We can pretend that we know, but we still don't really even know. But like if you drafted a bunch of late De'Ami, Marquez Callaway, Darrell Henderson, Gus Edwards, Elijah Moore, Rondale Moore, Corey Davis, Terrace Marshall, if you were drafting kind of all the younger guys and then the running backs that have benefited, I think you're going to be in really, really, really good shape over the course of all of your early teams. All right, let's see. I've rambled about that enough, but I feel even more strongly about that now, basically, is what I'm saying, than I did kind of before. That underdog, I want to be out in front of as much as possible, specifically for the contest that's next year is probably going to be more than $1 million to first place. And then on DraftKings, it's like kind of the opposite. I don't think my early teams, other than the fact that I have some, 13th round Darrell Henderson and those kinds of things, I don't think my early teams are like that much better than what I'm getting right now. But that's just because the competition is so bad, and the ADPs are so bad on DraftKings. So it's kind of playing each site a little bit different, I think. I was also thinking that drafting a ton early could be a huge advantage. If you take 100 shots in April and May, you'll have a ton of dead teams. Which I mean, that's kind of my belief. Yeah, I mean, look at this. That's sick. That's beautiful. right? It's kind of like if you got, Winky, my guy Winky on Twitter was huge, really heavy on Corey Davis. And so, basically Corey Davis was like he thought was like basically the most undervalued player, in drafts. Turned out to basically be right and got all this like 12th, 13th round Corey Davis. And now he's going in the 7th or 8th round. It's a huge advantage. It can't be on underdog. This can't be possible on underdog, Steve. There's no way. On DraftKings, I agree. Maybe even drafters. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't had that experience. I don't know who are these values. Yeah, exactly. Payoffs. I talk about this all the time, mostly as it relates to individual players, but I still don't think people ever can figure this out enough, because it's not like I can't just like it's not a simple basic math equation. But I'm trying to build a portfolio both of specific players that have certain levels of payoffs and of teams, timing of drafts. Everything is all entirely focused on getting paid off. I'm trying to win $1 million. How do I win $1 million? I don't really. I mean, of course, people make the point like, I just want to get teams through and see what happens. I want to get teams through too. I'm not building like idiotic teams. I think my teams have just as good a chance as anybody to advance. But I'm trying to draft in a way that gives me access to these payoffs because I need to beat 200,000 other people, which is like freaking impossible. And I think I've learned on underdog, drafting earlier is the best way for me to do that, and understanding that those dead teams are going to exist because I'm just going to have more shots at teams that are just much, much, much better, right? I'm going to have more shots at teams that have, so it's week 1 DFS. I don't know if you guys play DFS. If you do, you can find me on rotorgrinders.com every Sunday morning in the show leading up to lock. But like if you were to play this week one slate, and I were to have Alvin Kamara at $6,000, and you're playing him at what he's priced at right now on DraftKings at $8,600, I have a huge, huge, huge advantage over you, like massive. You're never going to beat me, basically. Over when I get to make 150 of those. Now, obviously, I don't have 150 of those Kamara teams, but I have a bunch. And so. I know the Kamara is a polarizing example. It's a little hyperbolic, but that's okay. Yeah, see, that's fine. I mean, I obviously like Darnold. Good call. Jerry Jeudy definitely made he was one of the, him and Jerry Jeudy went from the 8th round to the 5th round. And it's hard, it's harder to the earlier the round gets, it's harder to rise. So we could argue that like Corey Davis going from the 12th to the 8th isn't as difficult as going from the 8th to the 5th, because the quality of player you have to keep passing, right? Every time you move from the 8th to the 7th, we're talking about a tier of wide receiver, a tier of running back, and like getting closer to the elites. So the Jeudy thing is a great point. I got honestly a little lucky. I was taking Jeudy early in the 8th, 7th round, and then I kind of started to back off a little bit. And I probably shouldn't have, but I kind of started to back off a little bit, and then kind of got a little lucky because then he got steamed like right after I backed off. So it's just sometimes you get lucky. Let's see. Yeah, I really wish FanDuel had tournaments. I really wish FanDuel had tournaments. Next year, I think I'll probably have to make the climb into some of these cash games, sit and go type contests. It's just hard. There's only so many hours in the day, and I'm drafting 700 tournament teams or something over the summer. And so it's hard to do those other drafts and do content and have a life. It's tough. Yeah, Darrington is an interesting one to sprinkle in. I've done it a couple times on DraftKings. DraftKings, again, is a little bit softer, but I mean, you can get him in the 20. He doesn't go. He's undrafted. Darrington is now on DraftKings. And so he's I'm not like, I have a lot of him already, so I don't feel the need to like go crazy. But, particularly if you don't have a lot of him, I don't think a lot has changed for him. You probably weren't going to be using him in the first 3 weeks anyway. Now he needs to get healthy, obviously, and he's a little bit further behind the 8 ball because of the lack of health. Like if Jeremy McNichols or Mekhi Sargent or something win that job while he's hurt, obviously it's a tougher hill to climb for Darrington now than it was before. I think he was just like stone cold lead pipe lock handcuff to Derrick Henry and like stone cold lock, like kind of mix in passing down back. And I don't think that that's a lock anymore, but the upside still exists. And now the cost is cheaper. So see, I haven't been doing a ton of underdog. So I will fully admit to a little bit of ignorance. Yeah. So I love this, Steve. This is a great approach this is what I kind of started doing. Not necessarily, we can talk about the names or whatever. My only counter to this is tight end. I don't know. I don't love the late round tight end groups. I love the idea of pivoting to these late round quarterbacks right now. Well, especially on underdog, the market, we know what happened to the wide receivers. Even running backs gotten thinner. And I've been using Darnold all year. I've been using Zach Wilson all year. I've started mixing in Mac Jones. I've used even like a little bit of Teddy. I love using those late quarterbacks. I think that's a brilliant idea. Yeah. It's been interesting. Like that is one thing about this part of the draft season is drafts are a lot more variant, right? Like DK we know is just absolutely insane pretty much like every draft. But some people are having very different experiences on underdog than like say I am. He wasn't undrafted in my drafts, Willis. I had a lot of Callaway. Knock on wood. I'm gonna keep screaming from the mountaintops about my Callaway victory, my victory lap on Callaway because I have a lot of L's elsewhere. we got one right with Callaway. I won't argue that. Yeah, this is definitely. I would say that this isn't even something that is natural to anybody. I think partly because I come from the DFS background, and it's like you have to be willing to lose basically if you're a tournament DFS player, which is what my background is. You have to be willing to lose slate after slate after slate after slate. And so doing 150 drafts and having 25, 30, whatever dead teams from early on doesn't bother me. It doesn't impact me at all. And I think the way to think about it is that you could draft all your teams. Like you could draft 150. I know maybe not physically possible, but you could draft 150 teams on tomorrow, the last day before it closes. And you're going to have nearly as many dead teams as I'm going to have when I'm drafting a ton of my teams early on. Because, look, Curtis Samuel got hurt today. Paris Campbell doesn't appear to be super healthy today. So it's just football. People are scared to have the team dead early. They want to have the hope on tomorrow, right? Or this Sunday. You want to have the hope on that day. And those Cam Akers or J.K. Dobbins teams don't have that hope. Like, it's already over. But there's really no difference, right? If you drafted CMC last year, you had hope. You had tons of hope. And then that hope was gone. Saquon, even Zeke. Zeke didn't even get hurt. And it was over if you had Zeke. So I think we just got to think about it from a macro perspective and what our end goal really is here. Yeah, see, that's how if you can get it, awesome, but that hasn't been my experience. Let's see. Yahoo and FanDuel are so soft. Yeah. I do want to try to figure out a way. Maybe, we're going to be working on some tools and stuff here at Spike Week pretty much as soon here as once we get into the season, because obviously it won't be quite the same. I may be doing NBA. We're definitely going to be grinding the in-season best ball contests, but it won't be quite the same level that we're at right now in terms of time. And so I'm going to start working on like some tools and stuff. And so what I would love to be able to do is not necessarily automate that whole process, but make it easier to be able to go do some of those 12 mans, 3 mans, 6 mans, whatever, to where we think we still have an edge. Did you circle back to the puppy or puppy 2 after the injury market shocks to test more out there stuff? If so, what are you most interested to see the results of? This is a good question. What mostly happened with the puppy 2 for me, I'll be honest with you, the puppy 1 was like a blur. I don't really remember it. It was during the wide receiver craze. I had been drafting Best Ball Manias, and they dropped this puppy, and we do the ship chasing thing, and all of a sudden, Josh Jacobs is going in the 10th round, and if you drafted a running back, if you didn't draft wide receivers with your first 6 picks, your wide receivers were horrible. The puppy 1 was a blur. Puppy 2, I specifically remember because we had the Cam Akers injury very early on. I think it might have even been at the tail end of the puppy 1. Again, this summer is a blur. But Darrell Henderson was like my big thing. And so in turn, Darrell Henderson, that didn't work out very well. Old takes exposed. But Darrell Henderson originally at the very beginning of the puppy 2, I was just smashing as many puppy 2 drafts as I could because he was going in the 6th round at post Cam Akers, pre Sony Michel trade. And so he was my big stand. And then the market was still really efficient on wide receivers. So to your question, it was a ton of 0 RB or really fragile hero RB using Henderson and ETN and guys like that. So I am absolutely most interested to see people talk. We've done a lot of the conversation about structure, right? And 0 RB versus hyper fragile versus hero RB versus whatever. And that conversation has worn me out over 4 months or whatever, 3 months or however long we've been talking about that thing. But what I am most interested in, not even just these structures, hero RB, 0 RB, and roster construction strategies, but kind of archetypes of players, because that's really my bigger thing. Even maybe more than it's obviously the draft is if you're right thing, and that's what ends up with these types of structures. That's why these structures are what they are. But I'm interested about maybe Darrell Henderson is the winner, and you did everybody's kind of soured on him, but maybe he was a smash for the Rams. And then we look back next year and we're like, okay, well, we probably shouldn't be pushing down the backup for the Rams as far as he was when he's an upside bet like that, right? Or maybe it's Gus Edwards, same thing, And so I think it'll change the dynamics it'll make me feel better because I've been drafting those are guys that I was really heavily on. But, seeing the archetypes of players that are kind of the cornerstones to the season, basically. Is it Antonio Gibson? Is it Austin Eckler? Guys that need to grow their role to take that step? Or is it like Saquon again? Is CMC still just the cheat code? Is it a first-round wide receiver that's the smash, right? Maybe Stephon Diggs has the legendary season. My guy Kyle Pitts, maybe Kyle Pitts is the cheat code in the 4th, 5th round. Seeing kind of the player archetypes. And then kind of like late round quarterback, early round quarterback, punt quarterback. Seeing the success of those things is far more interesting to me than doing the 0 RB versus hyper fragile debates anymore. Those are kind of a waste of our time. Yeah, dude, same. I will say I have recently gotten in a fairly into some of my just like home leagues, and they're not for a lot of money or anything like that. Maybe it's because I do this stuff, and so I take pride. I don't want to get my ass kicked by all these guys who I don't think necessarily are as knowledgeable as I am about this, which usually happens. I mean, I don't think I've won any of my fantasy leagues in the last couple of years, so that's which is kind of funny and I guess maybe embarrassing, but I will say, best ball takes up all my brain space. Yeah, to the archetype thing. Chuba, Madison, right? What it used to be Henderson. Obviously, now he's in a different situation. But if you were drafting before the Akers injury, Henderson's in that bucket. Damian Williams is in that bucket. I was hoping Darrington was going to be in that bucket. Who else? Totally drawn up. Pollard, obviously, right? We thought it was Latavius. Now it's Tony Jones Jr. There's just so many of those guys. And that's what has been kind of a big part of my thesis. And then those guys versus passing down backs type of thing. Or committee backs, Rojo, the Bills. I think that's the fascinating part to me. What types of players? Because I want to know what types of players to draft. I don't really I know when, and I think all you guys know, when do you need to draft more running backs? When do you need to draft less running backs? When do you need to draft more wide receivers? Whatever. I think we've at least generally gotten to a level of understanding on all that. But when do you draft certain types of players? Or should you always draft? That was kind of what I was doing early on. It's almost no matter my structure, I was taking Darrell Henderson and I was taking Tony Pollard and I was taking Alexander Madison and Chuba and Darrington, whatever, and just kind of letting the offseason play out, the variance of the offseason play out for me. And it's if you got Henderson and Gus on a team, you have a total smash fest on a 0 RB team. So that's interesting to me. I too hope that Pitts is the cheat code, because I've been taking him like a madman on DraftKings, sometimes too early. But I'm trying to make sure I'm trying to reach a certain level of exposure to Kyle Pitts. Yeah, I like this. I don't like it for Cam Akers. I hope he is able to come back. But it's a pretty devastating deal. I'm interested to see because Kevin Durant, older than Cam Akers, different sport, I know, but Kevin Durant came back and was the best player on the planet basically after tearing his Achilles. So I'll be interested to see if there's kind of just like we've seen with ACL and Tommy John and stuff, these people come back and they're totally fine. So I'll be interested to see, the Achilles is typically more serious than those, but I'll be interested to see what that means for a guy like Akers. Yeah, I like McKinnon. I've drafted a lot more McKinnon lately because he's one of the guys I think has upside at the end that hasn't gotten this crazy boo. Damian Williams, now you got to take him in the 15th round or 14th round or whatever. McKinnon, is, I prefer Damian, of course, but McKinnon is a guy that has upside at the back end of drafts now that I'm scooping, like kind of replacing whoever I was taking at the back end before. That's funny. Yeah, man. I'm kind of, on one hand, I'm happy over the last couple of weeks. I kind of started to come to this realization about Kyle Pitts. And I mean, maybe I'll end up being totally wrong and he's just a colossal bust. But either way, I will feel confident in my kind of analysis around him, even if it's wrong. I feel good about kind of the process. What I don't feel so as good about is it kind of took me a long time to get there. So like just one of the other things in the lessons learned for next year, I feel like just not being lazy on the kind of player analysis. And I think that's what I was around Kyle Pitts. And so, I'm just trying to rectify that. Yeah, this is fascinating. When you really start to do, my God, Willis, when you really start to do these, thought experiments, think through the possibilities of teams that exist and how you could have structured teams. I'm not saying like looking back in terms of thinking about things you would change about your teams, because that's not going to be helpful. But just thinking about, these types of things that can exist, these types of things that you could have gotten, whether you got it or not, right? If I could have told you either got a 0 running back team that had 11th round Gus Edwards and 12th round Darrell Henderson. So you have Tyreek Hill and Calvin Ridley, and maybe you got Kyle Pitts and you got Amari Cooper, and you're just absolutely loaded. Maybe you took even, you have elite quarterbacks, like you're just a loaded roster, and you have Gus Edwards and Darrell Henderson on it. Maybe you like James Robinson and you got James Robinson on it. Like, would you want that 0 RB team? Fuck yeah, you would want that 0 RB team. Everybody would. There's a reason these guys are going the 3rd, 4th, 5th round now. On the flip side, like to your point, then it starts to compound that. Like you could have had CMC, like anchor, Hero RB, CMC, or Kamara, Dalvin, same thing. With 5 total running backs, and 2 of them are Henderson and Gus in the 11th and 12th rounds. That's why you draft that way. That's why we drafted that way in May. Like when you got the CMC team, you kicked RB2 down the road. Just figure it out, right? Gus will be fine. Henderson's an upside bet. Give me Madison. Give me James White or whatever. And you just, the position is fragile. Variance. It's just all variance, and you're just letting that play out in your favor, and you just got super teams. Damn, Salvador, you're one of the crazies in here. AJ Dillon RB1. No, I like that fine. I love AJ Dillon. AJ Dillon falls into, he's not quite as good of a DraftKings play, but he also goes later on DraftKings. And he also tends to fall in this weird bucket in like the 8th, 9th round where I know how many wide receiver values there are available to me. And I know how quick running back is going to dry up on DraftKings that I have quite a bit of AJ Dillon. Yeah, that's a really funny one. Todd Gurley did too. So there's also additional context to be had. Tony Pollard was actually I don't believe a high win rate player, but was on tons of teams that made it far into the playoffs because they didn't use him a lot throughout the year. And he had the one huge week in the semifinals, scored 30 fantasy points when Zeke missed, the only game that Zeke missed. So thinking about that kind of stuff too is really fascinating, right? Like you drafted a guy in the 12th round, probably earlier, Tony Pollard, 10th round, 11th round, and he was useless. Literally useless the whole entire season. You never used his score. But when you got to one of the most meaningful weeks of the season, Tony Pollard was the league winner. It's fascinating to think about those kinds of things. Yeah, I like this. I was trying to do this exact same thing. We're on the same page, Steve. And also with Latavius, which clearly that plan didn't go very well. But that's okay. Hopefully Latavius signs with the Ravens. We're holding out hope for my guy Latavius. Yeah, this is what sucks. But this is also a product of just it is what the market is. You know what I mean? Like he was identified as one of the best picks, in that range. I think that was true and accurate. And then that range has continued to get wiped out. Right? Gus, James Robinson, Darrell Henderson. So Latavius just been getting wiped out. So it's interesting kind of evolution. Yep. Yeah. It's been a couple months, but we talked about this. We had myself, Leone, and Pat Corain on one of the ship chasing episodes. Peter couldn't make it, and Gretsch had to leave early, so it was just the three of us, and had some really interesting conversations around this exact subject. Like Leone pulled up a lot of the win rate stuff, both from a structure and player perspective, and then we kind of talked about the archetype, like took that and brought out like the archetype conversation where we talked about, okay, Gurley had a positive win rate because he was really helpful for 6 or 7 weeks, but then he actually killed you. So that you had this guy that was a high win rate player, which is like good for like your season long league or something, I guess, maybe, your managed league, maybe it's good for drafters, but on Underdog and on DraftKings, he helped you get to the playoffs and in turn ended up being the reason you were buried when you got to the playoffs. So that's also a really fascinating kind of conversation. Oh God, Jake, don't ask me this question. I can't do it. I can't do it with Latavius anymore. I can't do it with these my favorite running backs, Latavius and Darrington, just coughing me. Absolutely coughing me. I think you can buy Latavius. I mean, that's just the most uncertain, and I like to buy uncertainty. So I support it. It's tough to say what the payoff is. That's the hard part. I guess we can say the payoff is he signs with the Ravens and he's he takes over for Tyson. I don't know. People talked about the Falcons. I guess the Chiefs are like not totally out of the range of outcomes. I'm sure I'm missing some other guys. It's tough. It's tough to say. Yeah, I'll be interested. That's a good call, Willis. I'll be interested to see. I don't know if Marlon Mack's going to play very much. Some of the reports we've seen lately are that JT's really going to have the stranglehold on the early down work, and Hines is going to take all the passing down work, and Mack might not play very much. So I'll be interested but I will be interested to see, like, does he look fine? Because, I mean, Marlon Mack was a pretty good player. Like, if they never signed Jonathan Taylor, and obviously if he never got hurt, we'd be having very different conversations about Marlon Mack. And now, he's a total afterthought, and obviously I get it, but I'm not drafting him. But like, he's not like just a total scrub. So it's interesting. Well, I'll be interested to see how that goes. I struggle. So counterpoint, Dan. And maybe it was just a phrasing thing, and I'm being a stickler. I hate the what is this pick going to get you anyway logic. Like, people will use that most often in conversations that I've had. Excuse me. People have used that as like, well, I'm going to take a third quarterback, or I'm going to take a third tight end, because what is that 19th round pick at wide receiver or at running back really doing for me? They suck. They're not doing anything. And that's not the right way to look at it. I'm not saying you shouldn't take Latavius here. And I'm not saying even when I was talking about the third quarterback or the third tight end, I'm not saying that that's wrong. That's not my point. My point is that logic is not how you should be getting to that conclusion. If you come to the conclusion that the third quarterback is right or that Latavius Murray is right, totally fine. I'm not arguing that that's wrong. What I'm arguing is that the logic of saying, oh, well, these guys all suck anyway, I'm just going to take the quarterback, is not really the right way to think about it, because we need those bullets. We need those bullets, even if they feel gross, even if the pick doesn't feel good. Right. And even if we know, your 18th, 17th, 18th, 19th, 20th round picks are not going to pay off. Like the overwhelming majority of the time, they're not going to pay off. But that doesn't mean you just say, screw it, they all suck, so who cares? That does still mean I still want to find Justin Jefferson. I still want to find Chase Claypool. I still want to find T. Higgins. I still want to find Mike Davis. I still want to find James Robinson from last year, obviously. Those are just the examples that are easy to use from last year. And so that's all And here's the other thing. People say this all the time about the third QB being a raise the floor safety play. And I don't even think that that's true. Maybe I'm not saying that I'm right about that either. I don't know. I don't know. People say a QB raises your floor. What the hell does Daniel Jones do for your floor? Or Jared Goff? That doesn't raise your floor. Yeah, A.J. Brown, Terry McLaurin, Darren Waller, Logan Thomas. The list goes on and on. And so, we can pretend that, we look back and we say, oh, yeah, we should have known A.J. Brown. We should have known yeah. Yeah, what do you mean? But there's a reason they went in the last round, because we didn't know. Nobody knew. If we knew, they wouldn't go there. Right? So you want to just keep taking shots on those guys because the payoff is so huge. Looking through some early teams because of the Gus Hendo combo, and it's driving home how many ways we won't. Yeah. I like to look through my early teams a fair bit, both because it helps me learn how bad I was at this when I first started drafting, and exactly what you said, Salvador. But yeah, I do basically agree, Dan. I just wanted to. I think that's just a thing that everybody has things, and the late round picks don't matter thing, I guess, is one of mine. Yeah. Oh God, those are the worst. Those are the absolute worst. When you look and you're like, I got 18th round Marquez Callaway, 17th round Damian Williams. I got Gus and I got Henderson, and then it's got 3rd round Michael Thomas. That's or ETN. Every time. Or I was really into. I thought, again, wrong. Lesson learned. I thought super early on that there were a ton of late tight end darts that would, over the course of the season, over the course of the offseason, play themselves out into being higher value picks. And I was wrong on all of them. It was pathetic. Troutman, Mo Alley Cox, Chris Herndon, Cole Kmet has worked. Ferkser, Jarwin. The Patriots guys have mostly worked. But that's 3 victories out of 10 guys or whatever that I liked back there. And so I have a lot of those early teams. I was like, okay, this is an angle I think I can take early in draft season. When in reality, just draft the freaking elite. tight ends, especially when the market is softer on those late round picks. I think that was a terrible mistake. Like you were able to get De'Ami Brown in the last round and Nico Collins and KJ Hamler in the last round and Donovan Peoples-Jones in the last round. And I was punting it off with these tight ends that now are not even getting drafted because I thought it was some angle, when in reality, I also was able to get Jerry Jeudy in the 8th round if I took Travis Kelce or Kyle Pitts early or something. So that's another big lesson I feel like I had. Yeah. Times have changed. People would this is the joke we make all the time. Like, people draft 4 running backs and even 5 running backs all the time, even casuals, because there's so much more content and so much more kind of knowledge out there about roster construction. When things like this, people would do this. This was like normal. People would build just literally stone dead teams. Yeah, Jefferson was like 16th round or something. I'm ballparking. It was like 16th round last year, but to exactly like you said, Jake, that's probably like a 11th to 14th round pick now this year, depending upon site, just with how the market has kind of changed on those guys, which is another interesting thought experiment to think through that. But there's a lot of options for that. And I know we get lazy, like with like who is this year's Justin Jefferson. I mean, I just did it yesterday because it's good clickbait when you're creating content. I just did it with like who is this year's Bills last night on a podcast with Gretch. But the reality is that this year's Jefferson there isn't one, and there isn't a Buffalo Bills of this year, but it is fun to kind of make those comps. Yeah, I think this is pretty much right. I think I would agree with this. You there's reasons to do only 3 running backs at times. But other than that, I think this is pretty much true. That's funny. Yeah, I mixed in some Ebron too. Good call. I mixed in some Ebron too. Yeah, I think this is, Wallace, this is where I've landed. Even though I agree with this, I don't want to have all elite tight end. Like if I were doing, my entire draft portfolio over again, or like, just even like 150 on underdog in the BBM. I still don't want to have all elite tight end teams. Because there's still possibility that Cole Kmet, Hunter Henry, Johnny Smith, Gerald Everett, Pat Freiermuth, Tyler Kroft, there's still reasons for some of these guys and to use your early picks on the other positions. However, I think I have a lot of elite tight ends, but I wish I had even more, basically. With Kyle Pitts being the guy, I think I should have drafted more early. I have a lot of Kelsey Kittle, not a ton of Waller, but ton of Kelsey Kittle, quite a bit of Hawkinson on DraftKings. Yeah, Rondale. I like it. Oh, really? Let me look this up. That would be. Sorry, I wasn't laughing at it. Well, that's interesting. Yeah. Austin Eckler was not practicing during the open period. He was working off to the side with trainers. So that's interesting. We'll see. What. I hope it's De'Ami. I just hope it's one of these rookie second year. Dog's like hacking on a bone over here. Yeah, I like Gerald Everett. I mean, the concern with Gerald Everett is just you don't want to overreact to the preseason, but he was splitting snaps with Will Dissly in the preseason at tight end, and he's just kind of a part-time player. But I'm still very on Gerald Everett. Yeah, I think so too. We got multiple shots on goal if it's a more. And I drafted a ton of those guys, so let's hope. Yeah, this is true, and this is true, and I don't think the market was quite as smart on this. So we'll see how that happens, like moving forward. The market definitely got smarter on wide receivers as a whole. Got smarter on younger players. Hold on, this dog is coughing like. Killing me. I'm annoyed how much Kittle I ended up with because it means I don't have tons of. Oh, I think that's fine. It's crazy. It's crazy, isn't it? Like you think about it now, and look at how drafts are going now, to players that where players get picked, where the rookies and second year players get picked, and where those guys go. But like Diami, perfect example today, right? Diami gets a nice boost to his value, at least early season value, with the Curtis Samuel injury. Even then, he got steamed up to the 14th round or something like that already, which is nice. I mean, if you have a lot of Diami, that's good. I do too. I think everybody here seems to have been on Diami, which is great. But it's a very different situation than last year. Yeah. Structure, and the points it's gaining you. The floor it provides you, the ceiling it provides you, everything. Comps are definitely fun, but we create so many anchors that deteriorate our objectivity and let in dangerous biases. So hard to stay agnostic, but it's a fool's game thinking yeah, for sure. I think I don't think, and maybe it does for a lot of people, I don't think it puts in any bias for me. What I think it's trying to do is predict things that I'll use, because it's a comp that I made mostly in jest, but like the Panthers will be this year's Bills in terms of that kind of innovative pass heavy offense that takes a leap. But we get situations like the Bills that like transcend a season. And you're not looking for literally that. I'm not looking for this is what I'm saying. This dude is killing me, man. This dude is killing me. Normally they're like wrestling or barking at somebody outside or barking at another dog, barking at the mailman. I can't do a stream without them losing their shit. That's what they do. This is also like the time where they have the most energy. But now the guy must have just like ate a bunch of hair or something. He's hacking up a freaking hairball. Killing me. Anyway, the next Justin Jefferson, the next Buffalo Bills. What I think you're really trying to do, or to me, you're trying to identify those situations that basically the league winners, right? I don't really actually think the Panthers are the Bills. I don't really actually think De'Ami Brown is Justin Jefferson. But that's the type of player that can turn into the league winner. I would De'Ami Brown's probably more like T. Higgins or Chase Claypool, not Justin Jefferson, but you get the point. Listen, Nick, the Panthers are the Bills. Deal with it. Get over it. It's happening. That's it. In Everett's case, I think you have to zoom out and remember that, yes, our spreadsheets are very important. However, it always comes down to how good of an athlete the player is. Greater athletes are. I must have missed a second message. I don't know whose spreadsheet. I don't have spreadsheets. I definitely am in on Everett as a football player, but also like there are good athletes who aren't smash fantasy plays, especially at tight end. He was a good athlete for the Rams, and they didn't even want to keep him. So I think it's a combination of a bunch of different things to me. Yeah, I know I'm latching on to the small sample in the preseason, and that's not what we want to do. And it's definitely some confirmation bias because the Panthers are like the team I'm most invested in, basically, in fantasy this year and in best ball this year. And no one, every time I talk about Sam Darnold, everybody just tells me how bad he is. And so I'm not even going to bring him up anymore because it's not worth talking to people. Because no one can see past what they saw of Sam Darnold with the Jets. And if I ever say he might actually not be bad, like, people don't take me seriously, which is fine. I'm fine being on that island, but it's just not worth the conversation anymore. But my real point is, if you watch that preseason game, they were kind of the Bills. They played a half. The starters, the non-CMC starters, played a half of their third preseason game. And they threw the ball, I believe, 26 times in the first half, which is like literally what the Bills did. They didn't really run the ball. Joe Brady is a brilliant offensive coordinator. If you're not familiar, he was the offensive coordinator at LSU for Joe Burrow and the national championship team with Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson and Terrace Marshall and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. But I think that there's reasons to believe that they are going to be this new innovative offense. And this, what Nick says, DJ Moore, again, I don't mean this as a comp, like a one for one comp, but he was used as kind of that Stephon Diggs role type guy who gets targets all over, but is getting these short to intermediate targets that he wasn't getting last year. That's a perfect fit for his skill set. We know how talented DJ Moore is, just like we knew how talented Stephon Diggs was. The only thing that is stopping him is usage. And not even just like raw volume usage, but like how he gets used. And so that's going to be one of the big things for me this season. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, and I'm okay with that. But you're a Panthers fan. That's nice. This is a good time to be a Panthers fan. A very good time to be a Panthers fan. Yeah, right? This is what I'm saying. Everybody that leaves Gase is just a crusher. But people cannot get what they saw from Sam Darnold with the Jets out of their mind. Like I posted something yesterday about the Panthers were the next Bills, and everybody just is like, no, Darnold sucks. I think I actually said Darnold is the next Josh Allen, and which is even crazier. But everybody is like, I like the Panthers, but it's because of the weapons. I know Darnold sucks. And it's like, you don't know that Darnold sucks. You think Darnold sucks. You don't know that. So anyway. I like Jeff Janis. Yeah. He's not. It's the playbook he came from, for what it's worth. Shane Waldron is from the Rams. The OC of the Seahawks is bringing over the system Gerald Everett has played in. So he's probably the most familiar with the playbook of any of the Seahawks. But I don't think anyone's down on Everett. He actually got steamed up pretty good this offseason. I think people see the bull case for Everett. Yeah, look at Tannehill. And Tannehill performed a little bit with Gase in Miami. He wasn't Darnold level bad. And Jarvis Landry was good. But I feel like those guys were doing it in spite of Adam Gase. Yeah. I tend to think maybe this is too bold. I tend to think Lawrence is a pretty hefty favorite for Rookie of the Year. And I love Fields and Lance, but I think, has there ever been a consensus superstar smash number 1 overall pick like Trevor Lawrence that's just getting no respect in fantasy, in everything? We're just totally glossing over Trevor Lawrence because of the funness of Justin Fields and Trey Lance. It's very interesting. Very interesting. Because my dog got some water or a beer, and he's doing better. He's doing better now. It's nuts. It's nuts. It doesn't make any sense to me. He's the best quarterback prospect since Luck? Since Andrew Luck? Yeah, he did. Under Kyle Shanahan. You know who plays for Kyle Shanahan now? And could possibly be compared a little bit to a fellow like RG3. The one Trey Lance. Good Lord, dude. Are you just making up that you're a fan of all the teams that we just so happen to be talking about at the time? I'm kidding. But Lawrence is just a fascinating case for me. The other thing is, it'd be one thing if he was coming, because a lot of the times when the number 1 overall pick comes in, right, he's the number 1 overall pick, which means he's going to the worst team. And I mean, they're definitely not the worst team in the NFL anymore, at least. That's the Texans. But he's also not coming into a team devoid of offensive talent. Visca, Marvin Jones, DJ Chark, say whatever you want about James Robinson. There's talent on this offense. The defense is not very good. The division is awesome for scoring. Awesome for scoring. And so it's it doesn't make a lot of sense. He runs. He's a runner. Maybe not the level of runner that Lance and Fields are, but he runs. He's a better passer than those guys. So it's just very bizarre that he just keeps getting knocked down, even as someone who's a bull on those other guys. It's very interesting. I'm trying to think about last minute things that we can do. We're 24 hours away from drafts being done. We'll be done. Yes, Wallace, they do. Say what it's not the most talented offensive line. That's what Brandon Thorne talked about. That cohesiveness is huge. And they do actually have some talent. They do actually have some talent. DPJ is not a bag, Johnny. DPJ is, you made money on DPJ. You made money on DPJ. I love Zach Wilson too. Zach Wilson has been an awesome pick. And same thing. Again, I love Trey Lance and I love Justin Fields. Another caveat, I'll stop saying it. Trevor Lawrence was the number 1 overall pick. Zach Wilson was the number 2 overall pick. Say whatever we want about our own evals and the rushing and excitement potential of Lance and Fields. The NFL decided Trevor Lawrence, and everyone knew that. Trevor Lawrence was the best quarterback in this class, and Zach Wilson was the second best. Whether we agree, disagree, whatever. And this isn't the Gase Jets. This is a much sharper Jets organization with Robert Saleh in charge. And so, and Zach Wilson has looked awesome in the preseason. He's getting rave reviews. So it's been fascinating to see the number 3 overall player. And I love just Trey Lance, right? Trey Lance was one of the guys I've hyped up that I've been super, super bullish on for fantasy and best ball this year. But him and Fields got all the hype and got pushed ahead of Lawrence and Wilson, who went ahead of them and are going to play all 17 games. They also have their own rushing upside. They're good passers in their own right. They have good weapons. It's a really fast. So I'm interested to see how the quarterback thing plays out. And then you lump in the late round quarterback thing. Like, I really like Tua. I think Darnold, obviously I've made my case for Darnold. It was brought up earlier, like Mac Jones, Jameis. Daniel Jones isn't really my cup of tea, but if you like Daniel Jones. Lance and Wilson have the same bye week. Burrow and Fields have the same bye week. And then Lawrence is week 7, which is, everybody has a freaking week 7 bye. So that's why we just have to suck it up sometimes and take a 0 at quarterback. All right. We're about quarter after the hour. You guys are awesome. Again, I say this every week, but I hope that you appreciate it. This is like the most fun thing for me. This is why I want to do this, to be able to talk to you guys, hang out, shoot the shit. This has been an just insanely fun draft season. It's not quite over yet, but we're pretty close. Tomorrow, I'm going to be doing a DK draft at noon Eastern, and then I'm going to be doing a stream leading up to what I'll call lock of the best ball contests. We can all have some fun, hop in a bunch of drafts together, shoot the shit, kind of similar to how we're doing here. So tomorrow will be action packed for sure, as we all try to get our last drafts in. But just wanted to say I appreciate you guys. These are like a ton of fun for me to be able to do, and just hang out, have a drink, talk about whatever floats everybody's boat. They're not going to stop it. We're going to you guys got to hang in there with me during the season. NBA is coming in season. Underdog is going to be launching tons of contests. Spike Week isn't going away. These streams are not stopping. We can talk about we can have a safe space to talk about our exposures in season, right? If Elijah Moore goes ham this week, if De'Ami Brown goes ham this week, we can hang out here and talk about it. You're not allowed to do that on Twitter. So tomorrow I'll be back. You'll see me too much tomorrow. But thank you guys. Have a great night. I will be drafting a lot tonight. So if you want to do some DK drafts, I'll be mostly on DK. If you want to do some drafts, just hit me up in Discord. Otherwise, I will see you guys. I'll see you guys tomorrow.